Hello and welcome back to another edition of the iTutor Math Show. I'm your host, Rebel Math Coach Bobby Ozuna. Today is Thursday, June 27th, 2019, and I am super excited to introduce you to part 2 of a new series I've entitled My Later Starts Now, Your Quest for Getting Your GED This Year. So for those of you who have been wanting to get your GED, I'm hoping that this show and this series is going to be an encouragement to you. I can tell you right now, for the past plus or minus 10 years, I've had the privilege of working with adult students trying to get their GED. And of all the students that I've taught, in the classroom, out of the classroom, the GED students have inspired me the most. Because think about the effort that it takes to get up every day and go to work, taking care of kids, taking care of family members, to go to a job that you may not want, knowing that that GED or not having that GED is holding you back from that next step. To still come home from work, take care of a family, take care of bills, take care of dinner, take care of all the things you have to take care of, and then on top of that, you have to sit down and study for something that you may not have studied for in years. And that process of watching adults do that has been such an encouragement to me over the years. That's why I'm really excited to do this series, because at the heart of all my teaching, working with adults, specifically the GED, has always been near and dear to my heart because of the inspiration I get from watching people work and push through to get there. So this is part 2 of this series. If you didn't watch part 1, I'd like to encourage you to go back and watch part 1, where I kind of start setting the foundation of how do we change our mindset? How do we take an approach to life to help me build success, build successful patterns so that I can get my GED and let that be one of many other milestones that I accomplish in my life. So today, part 2, I have entitled The Failure of Success. Think about that for a second. I've entitled this show, The Failure of Success. Now, I hope you're saying, hold on, Bobby, time out. We have been told all of our lives to grow up to be successful. And you're saying in this show, while you're trying to be an encouragement to other people, that success is a failure? No, I'm not saying that success is a failure. I'm saying that there is a failure in the concept of what Western civilization, specifically America, how we have drawn this picture of what success is. So I'm telling you right now, in the process of changing your mindset to give you a different approach to your life, to start building successful patterns, to building successful habits that are going to help you overcome that GED milestone and let that be one of many milestones you have in your life. One of many milestones that I hope you accomplish in your life. It's very important to me, as I've done with countless students in the past, to break through the barrier of your present mental set. What you believe right now, I need to strip that away. So all of this is just preliminary work to get you in the right frame of mind, so to speak, so that you're prepared and stop seeing the GED as some dragon you have to slay, but instead see it nothing more than another hurdle that you're going to hop over as you go on to the next hurdle in your life to start building those success patterns to build what we call success. So I'm entitling the show again, The Failure of Success, because I think American culture has tainted the idea of what success is. And I'm going to say it candidly, I believe reality TV, music, TV shows, and movies have created this idea in our minds that success is something that's always pretty. It looks really great. It makes you really popular, and everything's good, and everything always works out for you, and everything you accomplish is everything that you try. And that's not reality. So if you're really going to break through barriers, if you're really going to get your GED and let that be milestone 1 towards many accomplishments in your life, then it's very, very important that tonight we delete some old concepts. We just take them out of our head. If you can open up your skull, reach in there, find the definitions of what you think success are, strip them all away, clean it, close it up, and throw it away. I want you to walk away today from this show feeling refreshed and renewed with a different perspective that says, you know what? I now know how to gauge success and what it is, and I know how to walk in the path to start building true success. So again, I'm calling this show, this part 2 of this series, The Failure of Success. Let's go ahead and look at, let me find it. Let's go ahead and look at some of the topics. So I want to start with something. So last week, if you didn't see last week's show was entitled Know Thyself. It was the groundwork. It was the first in the series, again, to start preparing you mentally for building successful patterns in your life. So as a recap, if you don't remember, last week I told you it's very, very important that if you're going to change and transition from one phase in your life to another, it's really, really important as a student, as an adult, as a person who's trying to make change in their life, specific to the GED, that number one, you have to be transparent and honest. You have to be willing to say, I do not have my GED. And then two, we make no excuses because we're not ashamed. We are not ashamed of our past because we don't make excuses for our past, because we're not going to let our past define who we are, because we're already moving in a forward direction. People who grow, people who progress, people who create and do great things in this world don't sit around staring at the window wondering about what they should have done and crying or moaning about what happened. Instead, they say, it happened, I dropped the ball, and I move forward. So again, if you didn't see last week's show, I want to encourage you to go back and watch it. You have to be transparent and honest with yourself. We make no excuses for the past. We don't have a GED. That's the end of it. Number three, you got to be willing to make adjustments in your life. And number four, you have to learn to speak to hope. So again, if you didn't see that, I want to encourage you. But I'd like to start tonight by asking you a very simple question. How do we define success? Think about that for a second. I'm going to let you stare at it for a whole 5 seconds. Awesome. Now you got to stare at me. That's the question. I want to challenge you to do something right now. So if you're sitting down watching this show, I'd like you to clear your mind, close your eyes, and I want you to think about your definition or how you define success. I'm going to give you a whole 10 seconds to think about that, okay? Now think about it. How do you define success, or what does success look like to you? Ready? 10 seconds, go. Got it? Awesome. Now, for those of you who said, I thought about it, Bobby. I spent the whole 10 seconds watching you wave your hands, and I still don't know how to define success. Well, for you people who could not find a definition, this should be mind-blowing for you, because think about it. If you don't know how to define success, then how do you know when you've ever been successful? I talked about this last week. I said that a GPS really only works if you know two things. One, you have to know where you want to go. Two, you have to know where you are. Because the GPS can't get you where you need to be if it doesn't know exactly where you're standing or where you're parked, right? So think about it. If you don't know how to simply and easily define what success means to you, then how do you know when you're ever going to be successful? Think about what that does to you. Think about not knowing how to measure success and carrying that around every day and feeling judged or less than someone else simply because you don't know how to define it. So if you don't have a definition of success, don't panic. I've covered that for a second. I'm going to cover what success is, or a definition that I want you to embrace. If you did come up with a definition of success, share it in the comments. I love to hear what it is, but I'm going to give you something different. This is my definition of success. Now, it's something that I have stolen from a gentleman named Jeff Olson. Now, from what I understand, Jeff Olson is a native Texas writer, might have lived in the Plano area, but he wrote a book called The Slight Edge. I talked about this book last week. Now, I'm not selling his book. I'm saying of all the things that I read, self-help, encouraging, motivational things that I listen and read, The Slight Edge really stuck with me years ago. It really hit me because his definition, or defining the concept of success, was that success was a process, not the finish line. Now, when I read that the first time, I was like, wow, that's incredible, but what in the world does that mean? Success is a process, not the finish line. Now, I can say, I think that was 10 years ago that I first read that. Looking back on my life and all the years that I've worked with adult students who are trying to change their life, and then even younger students trying to change their life, I can tell you I understand today. I have the understanding that success is a process. It's not the finish line. Because if you measure success at the finish line and you have big goals, big dreams and big ambitions, and let's just pretend whatever those big goals and big dreams and big ambitions are, let's just pretend they'll take you 10 years to accomplish, right? 10 years to accomplish these big dreams that you set for yourself. That's a long time to sit in a state of wonder, curiosity, and hope. That's a long time. And then worse than that, I think you're setting yourself up, because if you wait 10 years and you don't get the thing that you defined that would tell you that you're a success, then how do you think you're going to feel about yourself later if you don't reach it? I think that concept, that Western American concept of success, if I have this, if I have this, if I have that, then I'm successful, is what hurts us. It hurts us up here because it causes torment in the mind. But more than that, let's be transparent, let's be real, it hurts here. There's nothing in this world that hurts more than believing in something only to see that something that you were pursuing or chasing crushed by the idea that it didn't happen. That's what I heard a quote from a movie once that said, "There is no prosthetic for an amputated spirit." Think about that. When your dreams and your hopes and your soul is crushed, how do you come back from that? And when you set big dreams and big goals for yourself, and you make the pinnacle of reaching them success, and you don't reach them, that's why I think many of us feel like a failure, or we feel like we failed. Instead, like I said, I want you to measure success as nothing more than the process of doing something that's going to help me reach my goals. That's it. Success is a pattern, a habit of some things that I do every day in my life, that if I continue to do them every day, they help me reach the goals, the multitude of goals that I have in my life. Picture a plant. I'm trying to grow some grass in my home. And not grass, but I'm trying to grow some grass in the front yard, because the entire front yard is full of weeds. So I've actually been out there with a backhoe and digging up weeds one at a time and tilling the earth, so to speak, literally like a mule, plugging up weeds from the ground, and then kind of tilling up the ground a little bit and planting seed. Now, I think I planted the seed a week ago, and I've been doing the whole water once to twice a day, and if I see sprouts of weeds, I pull them up. I've been doing the labor of the research that I did online, right? But how unrealistic would it be if I said, I've been watering the yard for 2 days, and I haven't gone out there to see a field that looks like the outfield of a baseball field? How unrealistic would that be to say that I've been watering for a couple of days and my yard should look like that? That's not realistic, right? And I know if you listen to me, you're like, well, that makes sense, Bobby, duh. But the same applies for other things in your life. If you haven't been in school in years and you want to get your GED, you can't presume that you're going to open a book or take an online test or a quiz and remember everything and know everything and test-taking skills and all this time management and all this knowledge, and to be able to walk in and pass the test. That's unrealistic. That's unrealistic, and that's the kind of stuff that makes us feel like, you ready for it? Hate to say it, but that's what makes us feel like a failure. So I've given you a definition that I want you to ponder on for a little bit. I want you to challenge yourself to say, success is nothing more than the process of things that I do that help me obtain my goals. Now I'm going to challenge you, what does it mean to fail? What does it mean to fail, and what constitutes a failure? What is a failure? So I'm going to give you a whole 5 seconds to think about that, not 10, because I don't want your mind spending too much time on something negative like failure. Ready? Done. Whatever it was. So, what is the definition of failure? What does it mean to fail? Now, I hope in being transparent and knowing who you are and being honest with yourself so that we can grow past that, I hope you really said aloud to yourself what it means to fail. Now, this is the definition I'd like to offer you tonight. For failure is nothing more than quitting. Quitting or stopping is failing. Think about that a second. Quitting or stopping is failing. Now, hold on, Bobby, hold on. So you're telling me that if I go take a GED test and I fail it, I'm not a failure? That's exactly what I'm telling you. The failure isn't the person that gets judged by a score, because if you let yourself get judged by a score, I'm going to tell you right now, there's not a human being that I know who could honestly say they've never failed a test or quiz in their life. They're lying. They're lying. And if we failed a quiz or test and that determined our whole future, then we'd all be failures. People who create success in this world understand that it's not the failure of a test or failing a class. that defines their whole future. It's stopping, progressing, and learning to overcome that obstacle that defines failure. That's what makes you a failure. So whatever your definition it was, if it didn't match mine, I'd like you to delete that also. Go into your mind, find it in the vault, delete it, step on it, throw it away, flush it down the toilet. I don't care what you do with it. From this moment on, as we progress to get our GED, when? This year, because you're going to get your GED this year, not next year, not last year, not 2 years from now. We are on a path to create success this year, because success starts today. And if you watch episode 1 and you started applying the things that I taught you, those 4 things, and you did the little homework assignment, you're already on the path to success because you're already doing things different than you were already doing the week before, and that's the pattern of success. So again, failure is quitting. So if you take a preliminary test, if you go take a pre-test, which I will encourage you in the next couple of weeks on this series, for those of you who really want it, for those of you who are not afraid to look and say, you know what, Bobby, I really want my GED this year, and the next couple of weeks, you'll be registering to take a test. Yes, you will. Bum, bum, bum. And guess what? Ready for this? You might fail the exam. Oh, does that make me a loser? Does that make me a failure? No. It just means you failed a test. We'll cover that in a few episodes. I'll cover that concept. Trust me, if I'm lying, I'm dying. All the adult students I work with in the past all did the very thing that I just told you. You take that test before you're ready. Anyways, back to this week's topic. Again, failure, again, is nothing more than quitting. When you quit trying, when you quit getting up, when you quit studying, when you quit pursuing this dream of getting your GED, then and only then can you say it was a failure. And if you want to go as far as to call yourself a failure, you can. But I'm going to tell you right now, you ready? You can't hang out with me because I don't want that mentality around me, and I don't believe that for you. I believe that you can change patterns and habits to start building success in your life now that are going to get you to where you want, and the GED would be only milestone 1. Failure out. We're not going to quit. I'm not quitting. You're not quitting. You don't quit. I don't quit. Capiche? Awesome. Let's move on. Let's talk about how do we take that to another level, Bobby. Okay, I get what success is. I understand what failure is and is not. So how do I go to the next phase? Awesome question. Let's talk about something real quick. Let's talk about theories. There is a theory, and if you've read a lot of self-help success books, motivational books like I have, or you've listened to seminars and listened to people talk, you've heard the whole concept of 21 days makes something a habit. Some people say 60 days makes something a habit. Some 120, some 6 months, some 10 years, whatever. Here's the point. Of all of those theories of what actually makes a habit something that's part of you, something that becomes innate, a pattern of something that you do every day, that it just becomes a habit, right? Whether it's 21 days, 60 days, 120 days, 9 months, whatever, here's the underlying common denominator in all of those, to slip in a math phrase. It's doing something every day. Having the diligence to force yourself to be intentional enough to say, I need to do this thing. I need to water that grass. I don't see the big pretty yard. I don't see the sprouts growing, but I'm going to trust because I speak to hope, because I have faith that if I keep doing these things, trusting a good source of somebody who loves me enough to give me good counsel and good advice, if I do them every day, I'm going to start seeing slow sprouts and then green grass. It doesn't matter if it's 21 days or 90 days or 120 days. What matters is, can you force the habits, the new habits in your life that are going to help you obtain the goals? And when it's specific to the GED, that means a little bit of time. And I told you last week, again, if you didn't watch last week's show, go back and watch it. You've got to be willing to make adjustments. And I know that's so hard because we're creatures of habit. But if we're creatures of habit, that means whatever I'm doing that's taking my time, that could be study time, is something that I created the habit of myself and I need to undo. Good point, Bobby. Habits and patterns. I'm going to conclude with this. I want you to spend some time in the next week, as we get ready for next week's show, trying to be intentional to identify what are your habits and patterns. What are your habits and patterns? If you have a full-time job, what does that look like? Does that look like going to work and coming home? If you have children, does that look like bath time? Does that look like dinner, picking up food, cleaning the kitchen, doing the yard like I've been doing, plucking weeds? What does your day look like? Be brave enough to write it down. Don't be ashamed. I don't care if you're a guy, tough guy, big muscles, whatever. Don't be ashamed to pick up a journal, pick up a notepad. Write down what your patterns are. What did you do today? Because I already told you last week that you owe it to yourself to give yourself 10 or 15 minutes of solitary time. And I know you have that because I'll tell you about that toilet time theory that I have one day. But every one of us can pluck out 10 or 15 minutes in our life for ourselves. And that's one thing that a lot of people who build success in this world, they do for themselves as they find solitary time to reevaluate, refocus, and identify things that are working and things that are not so they can make adjustments. And that's what you'll have to do. So I'm going to encourage you the next week to spend some time to find out what are your habits. Do you come home and plop on the TV and watch a show? Do you have a certain particular show that you watch every day? Do you spend time playing on social media a certain amount of time? What is it that you do? Because I want you to start identifying where you can fill in time. Ready for this? To start studying. So again, I want you to start finding some time this next week to see where you can fill in gaps of studying. Because don't forget, I'm going to go back to me for a second. Don't forget, of all the successful people in the world, all the people that you idolize or you think they're great or you think they've done great things, remember, they have 24 hours in a day just like I do, just like you do. So from a time basis, they're not different than you and I. What they are doing, though, however, is utilizing the time they have differently than you and then creating patterns and habits that slowly water, sprout, water, sprout. Suddenly they've got a garden. And in America, we see them with the garden. We're like, wow, they're an overnight success. Yesterday they had dirt and today they have a big, beautiful garden. But that's not reality. The reality is what you don't see happening behind the curtain. You didn't see them on their hands and knees plucking weeds. You didn't see them in the hot sun struggling to till the ground, to plant the seed, to fight off the crows or the squirrels that are taking the seed or the seed that gets burned up or blown away by a storm. You didn't see the labor is the point. Most of us don't understand the labor that's involved in things that people are doing behind the scenes. We just see the starting point and the end point, and then that gap of time, we don't even understand it, because from as far as we could tell, I just saw them yesterday and they were homeless, and today they have a mansion. They're an overnight success. But we might not have realized that they've been struggling and working for the past 2, 3, 10 years to get themselves out of a hole, to bring them to a place that they can transform their life. And that's the same for you. So exclude the whole concept of overnight success. This is going to be work. To get your GED is to make up for time lost in high school. But that's okay because you can do the work. So this is what I have you doing this week. If you're ready to go forward, you're ready to do this, this is your goal, you're ready to do it this year, I want to encourage you, go out to GED.com and register. It is free. You put in your first name and you put in a username, or actually you put in your email and a password, and then you go through a series of things like put in your address and put in your phone number, put in your name, and then the GED.com, as an example, will find testing centers in your location. So if you want to go to a class, if you want to be in a classroom environment, or if you just want to schedule and take the test, all of that stuff is there, information that you need. And again, you got to do the work to get to the prize, right? These are the habits. So whatever you've been doing, I want you to spend that time, find out where am I spending my time every evening, and I want you to take that, set it aside for a little bit and say, I'm going to invest that same amount of time in myself. So I want you to register with GED.com. And I also want you to find out when can you schedule study time. I need you to be willing to make adjustments. Remember, if you're looking at your schedule and you're realizing, and you're being honest, and you're like, you know what, I probably spend 30 minutes every night watching a series. And if I could calculate it, which I think you can do it on an iPhone, I might spend 15, 20 minutes a day just playing on social media. Or watching Bobby's show because I can't get enough of him. But if you were to add those two things up, 30-minute show and 15 minutes on social media, that's 45 minutes. If you did 45 minutes every night for 5 nights, or as I tell my students, 45 minutes a night, 4 nights a week, you've just created, you just carved out time for yourself, study time that you need, you've registered with GED.com, you've carved out some study time, and if you're visual like I am, or you like to hold a book, go out and buy yourself a GED study book. On that note, real quick, which one's the best study book, Bobby? The best study book is the one that you open and you read it and it makes sense to you, and it covers all of the topics for the GED. Make sure it's current, which means it has to be for the GED 2014 exam, because that's when the old GED exam expired, and the new test, the 2014 and beyond, which I think is good for 10 years, came into effect. So find you a GED 2014 book and buy it. You could buy them used, find them on Amazon. If you post on social media, maybe someone will have one. Ask them if they're willing to barter. Get yourself a book if you want the book. If not, there's countless study materials online. Register with GED.com. And again, the last thing, I want you to share your journey. Don't forget, as I told you last week, you can become motivation and inspiration to another human being on this planet simply by opening your mouth, having the courage to say, I don't have my GED, but I'm going to get my GED this year. Just that alone. 2 weeks ago, you could have been a person who didn't have a GED, who was worn down by guilt or shame. 2 weeks later, you are liberating people by sharing the good news of how you're going to get your GED and speaking to hope, like I told you last week, and being excited and buying a book and registering for GED. You're already doing things, effort, task, things that are on the journey. You're already a couple of steps into the journey, and we're not that far away from getting the GED. It is not this giant dragon test that you have to know everything about everything. That's not the GED. I'm going to liberate you from that in the next couple of episodes when I talk about the reality of the GED, because I need you to get rid of that mental block so that you can say to yourself, hey, it's just a test. I can study for it. I'm going to take it, but you're going to take it before you actually start studying for it. So be ready for that. So again, share that journey. I'll leave you with a reminder of the cycle of patterns. Remember what I told you, the cycle of patterns. What you hear determines what you believe. What you believe in this world determines what you say out of your mouth. And what you speak out of your mouth determines how you act. That is the cycle of patterns. I want you to start speaking like someone who believes they're going to get their GED. Be encouragement for someone else. Fill your mind with positive things. And again, if you got to pick up an index card, write yourself a note that says, I'm getting my GED in 2019. I'm going to pass that test no matter how many times it takes. I'm going to be encouragement for someone else. I'm going to build some study habits. You write that on a card. You read it over and over again. Let those words come out of your mouth, into your head, until your mind believes it, until you start walking like it. Because that's the cycle of patterns. That's all I have. So again, thank you for watching. This has been part 2 of a series called My Later Starts Now. Your quest to getting your GED when? This year. When are you getting your GED? This year. That's what I thought you said. Those of you who said last year, shame on you, time out. Again, this is part 2, which I've entitled The Failure of Success. We are being liberated with new mindset, new approach to understanding what is success and what is it again? It is nothing more than the habits and patterns of doing the things on a daily basis that are going to get me closer to my goal. And failure is not failing a test. Failure is not having a GED. Failing is quitting. And you're not quitting and I'm not quitting on you. So if you're not going to quit and I'm not quitting on you, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get your GED this year. I appreciate you watching. This has been the iTutor Math Show. I'm your host, Rebel Math Coach Bobby Ozuna. If you know someone who wants to get their GED, share the video with them. You become encouragement to them. You get them excited, and you may even find yourself a study partner. And the next thing you know, you may be opening up your own iTutor Math Show and putting that Bobby Ozuna out of business because you're taking the world by the reins and you're doing it yourself. I appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe, share it with the world. I love you, I believe in you, and I will see you next week.